Cadillac CT5 350T all-wheel drive. So after getting it on the road for a bit, what are my thoughts on this full review? Well, again, it's not bad. And again, I don't like starting a video, car review or off with it's not bad. Because at the end of the day, they are really trying to put out an effort. Cadillac, and they are still producing a sedan. So I will give them props, kudos for still producing a sedan in today's market. Pretty much everything has gone to either a truck, SUV, car-based SUV, blob on the road. It is becoming very, very bland out there in the car marketplace as far as variation and what type of vehicles, even like when you look at just colors that are available, it is just becoming a very kind of bland place. And I will give Cadillac the credit for still producing a sedan in 2024 and actually refreshing it for 2025. So points for Cadillac on that. Other points for Cadillac on this are that it's not a bad sedan either. It's fairly comfortable. I still feel that like up front here, it's not as spacious as like I would have expected to be, kind of in this mid-size category, but it's overall, not a bad place. So with that, let's go ahead and get into it and go through my full thoughts on this Cadillac CT5 350T all-wheel drive. Let's go ahead and start up our Cadillac. There we go. These weird GM messages, I don't understand. And also, like, I don't know, like, why, like, sometimes, like, the Cadillac logo does pop up. Sometimes it doesn't. It's probably a GM glitch, but there are actually a couple other glitches we'll get into throughout this review. But we'll go ahead and start her up. There we go. And in this pre-2025 version, I mentioned this a little bit earlier in that initial impressions review. Again, this stuff drives me nuts. And also, I will insert, I did find a oil change reminder card on the on the door when you open it up, and it is late. It should have been changed about 1,000 miles ago. And again, this is why I will not buy a vehicle and advise everyone out there not to buy a fleet-owned vehicle. They are not maintained to the highest standards. And so again, vehicles are very expensive. You are going to be on the hook for something that's, especially in this price point, for at least on the used market, in the 30s, maybe $40,000. And do you really want to deal with the headache of something that is not properly maintained? And yes, you could get extended warranties, and you may not keep it for the life of that warranty. But it's, do you want that headache? Do you want to be driving to and from the dealer, dealing with warranty claims, and really it's just not the kind of experience you should be experiencing in your new used vehicle. So I digress on that. PSA announcement: do not buy a fleet-owned vehicle. Try your hardest to either get a certified pre-owned, something that came off of lease, or something from like a private seller, something along those lines. But anyway, talking more about this Cadillac CT5, and again, it's not bad. I think it's definitely, again, you gotta applaud them for still making a sedan in 2024 and still keeping a sedan in the market. They actually make two sedans. They have, this one is actually their midsize sedan, and then they also have one that's even a little bit smaller, the CT4. We'll put up what the CT4 competes with, but then also where the CT5 competes with. And that's one of the interesting things about Cadillac and their choices on where they want to position their vehicles. So a little bit of brief history. Cadillac's been around for a very long time. lots of iterations. They used to be known as the standard of the world. I'm not quite sure that really applies today, unless the standard of the world has fallen off of a cliff. But you know, they produce a decent vehicle today, but it is very GM, and with that you get a lot of part spin robbing. So these stocks, they do come out of the GM part spin. You can find them in a Chevy, and same thing like with all like the controls here, like on the steering wheel, the window controls. It's very, very part spin GM, and even like the graphics and fonts, you're not getting anything really special here. I believe like even in the Suburban, we did a while back, it had the exact same fonts and graphics that are in this Cadillac, which I'm sorry, I find that a little bit unacceptable. You are paying for a premium brand, and you should get a little bit of premiumization here, or up your game on all your brands, kind of like how Hyundai Kia does, and you have just a more elevated experience. And if you're going to go like digital, then that's the challenge with going digital. So you have things that are screen based can look very, very dated very, very quickly, based on how the latest and the greatest graphics and ability to render things and computing power, all that starts to increase over exponentially over time. And so graphics from like 4 or 5, these look like they're from, I don't know, 10 years ago, look very old and can quickly impact your driving experience, or just perception of the vehicle, that it feels dated. Also, as it does actually have physical gauges, which I do appreciate. I will always choose physical gauges if you can over a full digital setup. At the end of the day, I know it's due to cost cutting. That's like why they want to tell you that it's kind of the future. It looks like futuristic, and sure, yeah, if you watch like a movie from the 80s and like saw what a car looked like from the future then, or even the 90s or whatever, and when they represent the future, everything has like a big just digital, just a screen and everything, and they're all self-driving, they're flying cars whatsoever. But with this, we're now in that future, and they're trying to, I feel, trick us a bit and saying like, oh yeah, it's like for you, it's the convenience, it's like configurable, yay, you can live in a video game, blah 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 blah. But it's cost cutting, because at the end of the day, it costs a lot more to source this little individual component, this component, this and this, and then a separate screen here, separate buttons here, than it does to just provide a giant screen solution all the way across your dash there. So with that, that's my little spiel again on why I don't like full digital solutions. It's not for you. It's actually for cost cutting with the manufacturer, and I will leave it at that. Also, actually, I won't leave it at that. I'll say it again, and always will say it, that once that breaks, and if you don't have these secondary controls here, or you don't have like a nice physical gauge here, I've had cars that are well over 200,000 miles. I've never had a speedometer break on me, but I've had screens start to flicker in GM products. I had them flicker in the Suburban. I had them flicker in that Buick, which we never did post a review on that. I have it queued up. It's just, I did not like that thing whatsoever. So to actually press public for that vehicle, I just don't want to really waste the bandwidth to actually put it out there, because it was that bad. So, but when you lose that like ability, when you put all that functionality in like that digital solution, you're gonna end up, you're putting a lot of eggs in that basket. And so at the end of the day, it's like I do prefer having something that's more of a physical way to like give you information that's not just tied to a screen actually working or not working. Sorry, that's a little bit of a spiel, but all right. Talking more about this Cadillac CT5, in the history of the CT5, that's where we were at before. So with the Cadillac CT5, we'll go ahead and just fast forward. Like I said, Cadillac's been around for a very, very, very long time. Multiple models, multiple kind of positioning within the marketplace throughout its years. And so, but we'll go and just fast forward to the 2000s when they really need to do a rebranding to restake their place in the marketplace. Because what was happening is that, unfortunately, they're kind of known as like the older, more seasoned consumers vehicle. We'll leave it at that. And unfortunately, if that's your core consumer, then and you're not bringing anyone new, then you're going to run out of customers at some point. So what they needed to do was basically find a way to reinvigorate the brand, produce a product that the younger generations, and then you could get them to buy into the brand at a younger age, would appreciate. And with that, sports sedans, foreign imports, from Germany, you have your BMWs, Mercedes, those are all leading the polls, leading the charts in the marketplace. And they have a very different type of driving dynamic than a Cadillac typically did, prior to the 2000s. So Cadillacs were known for just big, cushy, soft rides. They were super, super comfortable. Almost like if you had a lazy boy and you put put four wheels on it. That's kind of like what it was driving a Cadillac, pre-2000s. Except for the STS. That was a kind of a cool car. That was a little bit of, I think, Cadillac playing a little bit to see like how, the market would perceive, that type of vehicle. But they still had their land yachts. They had that Fleetwood. They had like the DeVille. They had that little Catera thing. That was a little bit also them kind of playing with it, a little bit to see if the market would want more of a sporty Cadillac. And they came out with the CTS. They called it their art and science design philosophy, and it was very edgy. At first, made its debut in the early 2000s. I don't know if you have fans out there that ever saw The Matrix. So they had a big product placement with the CTS, and at that time, the second generation Escalade, and they were featured very heavily in that movie, and you could tell right away this was a very different direction for Cadillac. With these new, CTS and letter type vehicles. They also started doing away with, their traditional names at that point. So no more Eldorados, no more Sevilles, no more Devilles. Escalade, I think, is the only one that actually kept its, a true, real, name, not like a letter-based type of name. And so that was also a little bit in response of Cadillac trying to be a little bit more of a global brand. At the end of the day, translating Eldorado, Coupe de Ville, Seville, all those names into the language of a another domestic market. It's a challenge, and then you also don't want to have the faux pas that some brands have fallen into. It can put up a couple examples there of what happens when you get that translation wrong, and definitely you're not going to make any fans or gain any market share in those types of markets when you can't get the name right. So going like a letter-based name, letters and numbers are pretty universal across the world. And with that, you're able to now have a much more kind of like a global, and the Europeans been doing it forever. So you have Mercedes with their, they tier it out by letters for their various model types, so all the way from A to S class, to denote the various type of models, and then the engine size, at least historically, as the numbers. So for example, if you had an E300, more than likely it was an E class, like a midsize sedan with a 3-liter engine, typically a straight 6 at the time. So Cadillac started kind of following that playbook a bit, and it worked for them in the early 2000s. It was great. Like those CTSs, they're a little bit plastic fantastic on the inside, but they drove really well. All the car magazines, all the reviewers, they absolutely loved those CTSs. And then actually, then they had the V series too. So their high-end performance models were denoted as the V series. So you had CTS V. There's actually even an STS V. So they had their CTS and their STS models as their primary sedans. And unfortunately, something very impactful to the market happened in 2008, and Cadillac had a little bit of financial trouble where they had to go to Washington and ask for some checks, from Uncle Sam to make sure that they stayed in business. Well, not going to say it was just it was GM who had to go to Uncle Sam to ask for some checks, and at that point, GM had to cut several brands, from its lineup, like Saab, Saturn, Pontiac, and Cadillac ultimately was saved. You had Oldsmobile in there too, but they had been discontinued a little bit earlier in the 2000s. They kept Buick, but it gave them really kind of the opportunity to then, again, further tighten up where their market position was going to be. So again, you have Cadillac at the very top, and then you have like Chevy at the bottom, and kind of like Buick in between. Still never understand like why GMC really exists, but whatever. But then now you don't have as much kind of like, well, it's basically just a Chevy with a Cadillac badge on there, or a Buick with a Cadillac badge on it. You can actually kind of better define where you stand in the marketplace. So that all was kind of fine and dandy until they still had this issue of you got to maintain profitability. They had to pay back all those loans from the government, and with that, you got to find ways to cut cost. So Cadillac continued to come with a couple refreshes, new generations of the CTS, but they still had this issue where they do a lot of like parts bin sharing. So as I mentioned before, these window stocks, for example, and even to this day, they come straight out of the GM parts bin. All the controls here, you can find these on a Buick, a Chevy, and that really, really dilutes the brand for Cadillac and makes it really hard for them to truly compete with the other luxury manufacturers in the world. And then, not to mention, you have competition coming out of Korea now, like with Genesis, and then the legacy, even at this point now, they're kind of legacy luxury manufacturer or brands coming out of Japan with Lexus, Infiniti to a degree, and you have a lot of options, which creates a lot of crowding in the marketplace in this near luxury, want to be luxury category for these brands. And Lincoln, well, they gave up on cars a while ago. They are strictly only an SUV and SUV, and then they have their car-based SUVs, and then also like their big truck-based Navigator SUV. And like I said earlier, I do give Cadillac kudos for continuing to make an actual sedan, and especially like with this sedan here too. So a little bit back, we'll circle this back around. So the CTS, when it came out, it was pretty unique actually, because it was basically priced at the same point, price point as a 3 Series, from BMW or a C-Class Mercedes, but it was almost the same size as a 5 Series BMW or an E-Class Mercedes. So you got basically a lot, more bang for your buck. You got a larger vehicle at the price of the smaller vehicle from the market leaders that are coming, from Germany, and that really kind of worked well for them. And so they've continued that a bit, to this day. However, everyone has gotten a little bit wider and heavier over the years. So a 3 Series today, it's about the same size as the 5 Series from 20 years ago. And, it just, you end up almost with the vehicle. Now this is like a midsize sedan, but it's truly like a midsize sedan. So it's very, again, close, like, size, so it's like, midsize sedans, but still kind of in those price points of those, smaller sedans. But the way the packaging kind of all works, it's still, like, it doesn't feel as distinctive. Like, actually up front here, this feels almost the same size as a 3 Series. And, with that, you lost a little bit of that extra value that you're getting in the size. Granted, like, price point wise, these do still way undercut what a 5 Series is gonna start at, and same thing with like an E-Class. But the problem is that you have this new competition coming in now from Korea, but then you also have your same competition coming in from Japan with your Lexuses and your Infinities, and even pretty much Lexuses and Infinities, but there's some like, higher end trim models too. So everyone started to try to get a little bit more upmarket. And yeah, so that has made some just very strong headwinds and challenges for Cadillac. So they not only have to compete like with the traditional luxury brands, but now what's coming out of Korea. And unfortunately, that's where I think this really falls short, is that when you stack this up against like a Genesis, it really falls short. There are some points on here that we will go over real quick where I feel that, there's some wins for it. It's not all doom and gloom for Cadillac. But if you were going to seriously cross shop these and you drove them back to back, and unless you just have a strong just preference, for the Cadillac, but when you stack up next, figures, if you're just a very, I always get confused, type A, type B, the one who's just very analytical, type of personality, the Cadillac loses. It's sad, but it's true. And, with that, it's, it's pretty difficult, and kind of sad that even like, and they do it to themselves. So let's just go ahead and get into that. We'll go ahead and start like, with going like, through the dash and like all the, menus and features. We'll do it fairly quickly, but even like this is a 2023, 2024 model. These fonts look like they came from the early 2010s. Like, I don't understand. Like, and again, this is also part of the problem. 1%, great. Great job, Avis. This is also part of the problem with when you parts bin share and then you're not paying attention, to your competition, but then also with what is your true customer? Who are you selling this vehicle to? So if you're someone who has like, poor eyesight or something, and like you just want to get in a car that, feels sort of comfortable and stuff, and it has kind of that traditional 1980s and before land yacht, just true Cadillac soft feel, this still isn't the vehicle for you. However, with these fonts, you'd be able to like see them because they're fairly clear. I'm not going to like ding them for that, but it's very dated. When you compare it to like what you get again in a Genesis, even in a Lexus like ES, 350, and like we all know that Toyota is not the leader when it comes to any type of let's get that a little clearer. Oh, that's better. Any type of modernity when it comes to like graphics and user interfaces, in their infotainment. Like this, what are they doing? I don't understand. Like, it's like it's so just basic, and this is a Cadillac again, and again they are changing all this finally for 2025, so they will update the graphics, and this whole thing will become a giant screen, which I wish they could just update the graphics at the end of the day. Like, I think this dash layout, having like your screen here, is perfect. I don't think you need to go to a giant screen other than for cost cutting purposes, but we've already talked about that, so we don't need to jump into that any longer. And so with that, like, you're getting a much better bang for your buck these days from the Korean companies, not to mention even they give you that much better warranty than you're going to get, with the American brands, or even anything out of like, Germany. And like, I think the Germans are still okay because they still have that brand cachet that, they're always going to park that Mercedes, up in the front of the valet. Your Cadillac, if there's no one there, that night, they might park it up front. But, if you buy the Mercedes, if you buy an Audi or a BMW, even like, even like a high-end Volkswagen, maybe, they might even park that out front. But your Alfa Romeos, like, I forgot about those. Like, even like the Italians, like the whole, everything from Stelantis, like your Maseratis and all that too. Like the Cadillac, you're going to be parked in the back. So it's kind of sad, but it's still refreshing that they do produce a sedan or 2 sedans these days. But yeah, it just, I really wish they would wake up, and it would be one thing if they kind of kept this very simplistic graphics and navigation or way to navigate through the menus because of their demographic that they're catering to. But this doesn't drive like a big soft lazy boy with 4 wheels on it. It ends up driving fairly sporty. It has paddle shifters on it. It has a sport mode, which we're in now, and I just don't if you're looking for a couch on wheels, then this is not it either. So that's kind of the problem I feel for Cadillac these days. So going through these menu options, it's pretty all standard GM stuff. Very kind of weird. I thought this was actually kind of weird too. I'm why do I need to know what the software information is? When you click on it, it's very why do I need to know this? This is, why are you taking up space, in my driving experience, or distracting me because I accidentally click on it. It's I don't need to know that. It's bizarre. And so in the settings here, it's kind of why do, in the options, there's just not that many options. There's display, which will let me change, these options up here, but that's about it. And I can exit, but okay, yay. It's just it's not designed very well. I think that's at the end of the day what I'm trying to, it's just not a lot of thought, I think, really went into making this an experience that would feel special. And I think that's what Cadillac is losing today, is that it doesn't feel that special anymore. And other than these very special the world's tiniest exterior mirrors, that's special, not in the good kind of special. But as we go through, again, this is all parts bin, stuff here on the steering wheel. As I mentioned in that initial impressions review, I do really, really appreciate these physical gauges, this here, and then also having if you really wanted to go through the screen. Again, this is so ugly. I don't understand. It's horrible. What they're doing with these graphics here. It's just no design, no thought, no, just slap 4 circles up here on the screen and call it a day. It's just, you're supposed to get a special experience in a Cadillac. I'll leave it at that. And you're not getting it in this Cadillac. So maybe in the Black series, but I think what you're really getting special, or the Blackwing series, you're getting that really special V8. But in this, no, this is that 4-cylinder turbo, and it's funny. So we'll get into that in a minute. We'll stay on track here. So again, love the physical buttons. Hate this. Do really love this. So as we saw in the Genesis, you have the ability, instead of getting grimy, nasty little fingerprints all over your screen here, you have the ability to control it, with this nice big chunky knob. Also, you have your volume control here, music control, phone, tuning for your radio, nice back button, home button. So you have actually 3 home buttons. You can click home here, you can click home here, you can click home here. So that's all, fun, interesting stuff. You have your climate, redundancy there. So you can, again, you can click on it up there. You can also, again, I prefer here. And these, there's some it's not metal. It's made to look like metal, but you do have a little bit of thought, I think that went into this design here. This does mimic this little V shape, here into the seats, which is part of the Cadillac logo, I guess, now. Also, you get a little bit interesting materials going on here. You have this kind of I don't know, dullish, weird, sparkly black, this kind of leathery material here, this very interesting, shiny zebra looking wood there. Here on the center console, you have your golf club type, electronic shifter straight out of BMW circa 2010s. you know this is not a true driver's car though, because your modes are kind of out of reach here. So like to like shift between your different modes, you have to like fiddle around with this like little toggle switch here. However, it does at least give you, and again, it's like where I'm like, are you like not to like talk about people's mental situations, but do you have a little bit of a personality conflict here? So you have like a my mode for your drive modes, which you can adjust your steering, brake feel, and engine sound, because it does pipe the sound through here. It's not real sound. And, with that, again, whatever. But why would you, if you want something that's plush and soft and just wants to, there's not even like which is funny, it's a Cadillac. There's no like luxury or comfort mode. It's like my mode, Tour, which, again, Tour is just going to give you a little bit more aggressive shift points. You have a sport mode, which is just everything's pushed out to the max. Snow and ice, it's going to feel, I'm guessing, like an eco mode. And then you're back to my mode, and then you can edit it. You can like slide this around. So if you want your steering to feel very heavy, because all this is like electronic steering now, your brake feel to feel very firm. But what's funny, actually, in this my mode, you can't even like, it's just like sounds and feels. Like it's not anything to do. If you go here, cancel. Here at the engine and shift. So that's actually a little bit something to note. So you're not getting any kind of like transmission mapping or anything like that. So it's a kind of a weird function. I don't understand. Again, a little bit of like personality disorder here going on with this Cadillac, but and knowing what they want to be. Also up here too, again, a little bit hidden, is your engine auto stop feature. I always keep that turned off. It drives me nuts. Always having that thing just like, turn off at every single stoplight. It's actually not that great, for your engine and, battery and alternator and all the, components for your, for starting your starters and all that for your engine. So I keep that off. And also it's very annoying when it happens. So I, again, keep that off all the time. Your traction control on off is there. Auto hold, that's going to basically, if you are on a hill, it's going to keep you from rolling backwards. Or, just use your, foot on the brake, left brake it, left foot brake it, keep your right foot, near the gas. You can do that too. So I don't think you need a button that's going to probably cause a problem later on. You have, wireless car charging. So it's, I never really use that. I think it's kind of silly. It doesn't really have a charger phone that fast. And, nice rimless, rear view mirror there. That's going to be auto dimming. I kind of like actually this interior setup. So it's funny for a rental that they went with this like lighter interior. I mentioned too that it's held up pretty well. Like it is 20,000 miles. I like this like darker headliner. It gives a little bit of drama to it. Definitely nowhere near what kind of drama you're gonna have in a Mercedes of today, but not nearly enough to give me that kind of like special, feeling. So really, there's some ambient lighting, that comes through underneath the door pulls there, but it's not adjustable, so that's a little bit frustrating. Speaking of frustrating, we'll go back here and I will insert my experience with the Apple CarPlay, on this little road trip. It was so glitchy and so horrible that it would just make me not want to buy this at all. And I would say, like, hopefully it's just related to this specific model. Maybe it just needs to go into the dealer for a refresh. But it's been kind of a theme, like, on these vehicles that I've gotten, over the last few weeks, where you have electronic issues. And I think that's also something to be noted, that, as we continue to get more and more electronics integrated and more just functionality and incorporate into that driving experience, like, at the end of the day, they're still electronics and they can still glitch. And it was so frustrating. You will insert, what it was doing. It would not connect. It would not pair. It like kept unpairing, and it was just very frustrating. Definitely not something you want to fiddle with. Definitely not when you're renting a vehicle, but also in your day-to-day life, with the vehicle. So with that, that was very disappointing. Hopefully it's not an issue that has, bothered other drivers and their experiences with their Cadillacs CT5s or any other GM product, because they share all the same parts anyway. So hopefully it's just related to this, specific model. But at about 22,000 miles, again, that's not really acceptable to have electronic glitches happening, on a year-old vehicle with 22,000 miles. So, what else? Anything else interesting in here? You have My Cadillac. I think it's like some sort of like subscription service. Again, takes forever to load. Like, what is like? We're not gonna go through this. We're gonna just back home. Your climate control is serious. Your OnStar has been around forever. It's basically your emergency roadside assist. They were, I believe, one of the first companies actually to do it. So GM does have some innovation up its sleeve, has in the past, and that's why it's always kind of like a roller coaster with GM. Like, they come up with some really useful things throughout their history, and they transcended down through other brands, but it's like they come up with one great idea and then take a nap for 10 years. So I just never really understand GM's thought processes, other than let's save as many pennies as we can to hit that profit number and then call it a day. So all basic kind of stuff you'd expect in a near luxury car. Except, let's see where's navigation, actually? Does it not have it? There's no map. Huh. I just realized that there is no dedicated map in this model, so it could, again, be that this is just... What is it? Is this your map? That's OnStar. So OnStar, will give you turn by turn. Okay. We don't want that, but... Huh. Again, you get maps in Hyundais and Kias, but this is a Cadillac, and we still don't even get a damn map. I don't understand. One thing we did get, though, I will have to call it out, we did get adaptive cruise control, so yay, happy, thank God. In our 2023-2024 Cadillac, it does have adaptive cruise control, so that was a plus in my book, but still, you're just, missing the mark on so many little things. It's just again, if you get a great lease or some great financing of negative 5%, maybe, sure, I'll take it. But it's kind of I don't understand, so how you're going to compete again with what's coming out of Korea. And then again, I was always say once because it's not even an if anymore, it's going to happen eventually. Chinese vehicles will start entering the US marketplace, and then it's going to be such a quick and swift nail in the coffin for these American manufacturers if they do not step up their game. So you do get some ventilated seats, woo. So that's kind of my review on this Cadillac CT5. It will be interesting to get a refresh model at some point with the 2025 and see if they made that same kind of mistake that they did with the XT5, XT4, I don't know, whatever that weird Equinox kind of thing that we rebadged Equinox that we drove Cadillac earlier, where they just had the screen just slapped right on on the cowl here. And so we'll see how that looks, and then let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you have a Cadillac? Do you love it? I think one thing that going for them, they might be okay on reliability. We'll look it up and then put anything that has come out with these 4 cylinders or even a 6-cylinder, and see if electronics wise it's got glitches. So we'll see if there's any other major issues that have come to light with these Cadillacs. And we'll see you in our next one. Thanks again for watching. Again, let me know in the comments, your thoughts. Do you think Cadillac is a brand that is on life support or can be resuscitated at some point? And, actually, let's go ahead and do one more thing. Sorry, this is becoming a long video, but we'll go ahead and check out the back seat, because I think that's actually where they make up a little bit of space and it doesn't feel as tight. At least when I was looking at the numbers, it does actually have a little bit more rear seat space than its competition. So we'll do that real quick and then wrap this up. Okay, sitting in the back seat of this Cadillac. Well, I'm not super tall, but not super short either. And rear seat room, it's okay, but I can see like also why SUVs, and I've driven SUVs for a while now, and that's another thing too. Like sedans actually just feel kind of cramped, or at least like, this one does. This feels okay in the back seat, but you're not getting anything special. This is like cheap. Like, what is this? Cadillac, where is my own personal controls? What do we get here? Do we get anything interesting? And get some cup holders. Okay. That's real special Cadillac. But like I said, you get this like little bit ambient lighting here. But in a mid-size sedan, you have a little bit of space, back here. And I think, again, in the numbers, that's where they're, giving you that extra space is, actually back here in the rear seat. And yeah, but I'm not that impressed. It's actually kind of funny. It feels like it has a little bit of kind of like a stadium seating, back here. So you sit up a little bit higher in the back seat, but as a sloping roof line. So it kind of feels a little bit tight. I wouldn't want to fit 3 people back here. 2, maybe, if you really like them. But that, no more. And I'm feeling a little claustrophobic back here. I'm going to go back up front. I can see again like why SUVs and have kind of now really taken over. Once you get used to that extra space, it's kind of hard to go back. It's kind of hard to go back. So, all right, let's wrap this one up. All right, wrapping up this video, this Cadillac CT5. Went over a lot, so let me know in the comments what you guys think. Would you buy one? I'm giving it a, if you're, like I said, if you have a negative interest rate, maybe, or a very, 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 very attractive lease. And we'll leave it at that. Thanks again for watching. Please like, subscribe, if you did like it. If you didn't, it does help out with the algorithm. Like, subscribe, comment, share. It's all very much appreciated, and we will see you in the next one.